Joining me is Jack Keane. He's a retired four-star general, former Vice Chief of Staff of the US Army, and Chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. General Jack Keane, thank you so much for your time. Now, to these Russian war crimes now being uncovered in Ukraine, to me it underlines a fundamental failure of US and European policy for most of this war so far. This false idea that there could be some kind of peace deal, a compromise between Ukraine and Russia. To me, it seems now Ukraine cannot compromise with these bodies being uncovered, and the West must do everything to actually help it win this war. Your opinion?
Yeah, well, certainly what has happened here, Ukraine has certainly achieved a great victory here in the Battle of Kyiv, which they have won a significant victory there, and against what was advertised as the best of the Russia's military was coming into Ukraine. They performed horribly, but the Ukrainians outperformed them rather significantly. This war, though, despite that victory, is far from over. Russia is controlling terrain now greater than what they did on February the 24th, when the invasion began. And any ceasefire or peace agreement now which would certify that gain in territory from which the Russians would be able to intimidate and coerce the Ukrainians for sure, and also start up again. And what the Russians are really interested in this second phase, having lost the first phase in the north, is make certain that they gain entire control of the southern coastline. And there's 80 or 90% of Ukraine's resources are in the east, partially under their control right now. And to gain that coastline would shut off all access to the Sea of Azov, and also the Black Sea. That would absolutely devastate Ukrainians' economy and also create significant, I believe, political and social divisions likely in the country as a result of it, all in the interest of what Russia is achieving. So despite this significant victory in the north, there is still a possibility of Russia achieving a victory in the south at the expense of the Ukrainians for certain.
So it seems to me from what you're describing, we are now in a really critical turning point in this war, or we should be. We've gone from the Ukrainians might be able to make some sort of peace deal, some concessions about territory in the east. But these war crimes, I just think, are so horrific. Ukrainian won't want to do that. And I'm just wondering whether we need to shift our change too from containing this war to saying this is so horrific, this war actually needs to now be won by Ukraine.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I felt that actually before the evidence of the war crimes became evident, when it was obvious that the Ukrainians had the capacity to stop the Russians. Now we believe they actually have the capacity to drive the Russians out. And listen, let's make no mistake about what is really going on here with these atrocities and war crimes. This is the Russian way of war. This is not some lack of discipline on a part of soldiers or junior leaders down at the very tactical level. This is something the Russians have done in World War II to Germany, certainly, and certainly Germany had committed significant atrocities to them. But these atrocities also showed up in Georgia in 2008, obviously prior to that in Grozny in 2000, and significantly in Syria when they did carpet bombing of entire neighborhoods and towns and villages where there was no enemy present. So what is going on here with this massacre in Bucha? That's not an indisciplined army. This is a rational decision on the part of Russian leadership to kill people and terrorize those who are living into bending them to their will. It is part of their doctrine and the Russian way of war, and the world has got to hold them accountable for this. There should be no doubt now that everybody should be all in to help the Ukrainians drive the Russians out and achieve the victory that they're seeking.
I take your point. It's a very important point that the war in the east and in the southeast and along the coast, it is still raging. The Ukrainians have nevertheless had a tremendous victory, as you say, around the capital in the north, Kyiv. and they're now trying to push the Russians out from other territory. Speaking as a general yourself, Russians, tell us the extent of the Russian defeat, as it were, at least in the north, when you've got now something like 450 tanks we know of, as in there's photographic evidence, the real number is probably more, Russian tanks that have been destroyed. You've had no fewer than 7 Russian and Chechen generals killed. I mean, that strikes me as a layman extraordinary. As a professional, as a general yourself, how does the Russian army setback seem to you?
Yeah, any aspect of warfare that you touch here, dealing with the Russians, they come up considerably less than satisfactory. Certainly the initial campaign plan itself, attacking on 4 different axes into a country that's very sizable, not mutually supporting each other on those axes, each axis having to have its own integrated logistic support and air power. And they just couldn't do that. The campaign was overly ambitious and did not reflect the capacity of their own people on the ground. That would have been very challenging for the United States to have such an ambitious plan like that. And we've got more experience at this than the Russians do. And then when it came to their tactical performance, it was considerably less than satisfactory. I mean, they didn't do the normal battle drills on how to react to enemy contact and how to suppress fire and maneuver on that enemy. You saw probably videos of these long columns not being protected by infantry as they moved through towns and they were being ambushed. These are fundamental flaws in warfighting at the tactical level. And then at the leadership level, the Russians still have a Soviet model of leadership, Andrew. By that I mean the plan is made at the top, it's centralized control, and the tactical commanders below them do not have the authority to make decisions on their own based on their current situation, which is how most Western militaries actually perform on the battlefield, to include your great military itself. It reflects the democracy and adaptability that's in your society, and it operates very healthy in your military itself, but not in the Russian military. So they had huge problems there. They continued to stick with plans that were absolutely failing. They were throwing another battalion and another battalion after that into the same area, doing the very same thing that the battalion was just destroyed doing. It was stunning to us to watch that. And then the morale of the organizations began to fall apart because they were taking such heavy casualties, and they started to get combat refusals. They're still getting combat refusals in the east, in the Donbass region, within the last 24 hours of a unit that came in there out of Georgia and got into an initial fight and then refused to do anything more. And they're now out of the Donbass region back into Russia. It is stunning. The other thing they did, which surprised us, is they left their dead on the battlefield. They did not recover their dead. There is nothing more devastating to the troops at the tactical level who are fighting day in and day out to know that they're not going home to their loved ones in the event that they get killed. And that is just an incredible statement on the part of the Russian leaders to permit something like that to happen. Every aspect of their performance has been brought into question in terms of less than satisfactory. And their logistics system, I'm being generous by saying there is one, a system. I'm not convinced there is, because they have never been able to sustain the operational momentum of their units with timely logistics. It's been a complete failure for them.
Well, just on that last point about leaving their dead on the battlefield, I noticed I've seen pictures of Russian trucks being used instead to commandeer Ukrainian washing machines to take that home as loot, and carpets. The dead can be left behind, but let's keep our loot and send it back home. It's just been such a picture of a totalitarian regime almost that's in decay and collapse. General Jack Keane, thank you so much indeed for your time.
Great talking to you, Andrew. Enjoyed it. Thank you.